Welcome, viewers and listeners, to CHP Talks. It's great to be back with you again. And we have a local guest with us today, Mr. Michaelggburns from Smithers, who is running as a candidate in the election for school trustee in the School District 54 in British Columbia. So, Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Rod. Nice to be here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, and I'm going to introduce you a little bit to the listeners. Michaelggburns grew up in the town of New Hazelton in northern BC. That's not far from here, where he gained an appreciation for nature and the rich culture of the region. He attended the University of Victoria and obtained an honors in Bachelor of Science in Geology, and continued with a master's degree from Laurentian University in Sudbury, Ontario, in economic geology. Michael and his wife, Anna, moved back to the Smithers area with their 3 boys in 2020, and they are happy to call the Bulkley Valley home. Mr. Burns has built an exploration company that specializes in flying geophysical surveys worldwide for mining companies. It has been a rewarding and a demanding career that allowed him to work in several countries over the past 8 years. Michael values the education system and believes that he can provide a representative voice as a school trustee to his community in the upcoming election. So once again, Michael, really a pleasure to have you with us today. These school board elections and the municipal elections going on in British Columbia are extremely important. And of course, we are concerned I'm as a representative of the Christian Heritage Party, but as Christians in our community, people who care about the future of our education system. I'm glad that you have stepped up to the plate. So tell us a little bit about what caused you to get involved in this race, in this election.
Yeah, that's a good question, Rod, and one that's asked of me quite a bit, obviously. I think that the foremost reason is I have a direct connection now to the school system, with having 3 kids that are in it, and or 2 kids that are in it currently, and one that's going to be in it fairly soon. He's 3 years old, and it opens your eyes to the changes that have happened in the school system since I went through it years ago. But also, I'm at a fortunate point in my life where I have a bit of time to be able to give back to the community, and it's something that I've wanted to do is play a bigger role in the education system, as well as be there for a voice for the community and for the constituents that are in the zone which I would represent. And like you mentioned there in the introduction, there are a lot of values in my personal life that I feel should be focused on in the school system, and a lot of them are. But there's also values that I think need to be refocused or discussed in terms of, are they aiding in our kids' education, and how do we ensure that our kids are in a effective learning environment that's safe and that everyone is happy with. So one of the other big things is communication. I've felt that parents are less involved in their kids' education, not because of a lack of desire from the parent side, but because of a closure of avenues for communication with the school or with the school district, between parents and the system. So I think there's some broken links within that chain of communication that could be repaired, and hopefully I'll be able to at least bring a voice. I might not have enough power as a single trustee to do too much. However, there's always a way to encourage that, whether or not I can lend to formal changes in the system.
Yeah, well, of course, you are an individual, in that sense, a single trustee if you are elected. but you also have, with your voice, you bring influence into a situation, and hopefully when it comes to common sense and providing good education for the children, every person running for the position of school trustee should have the same desire to get the best educational outcomes. And so some things that you bring as an individual may be influence the thinking of other trustees if you were elected. So it's wonderful. I was thinking about education in general. Of course, I remember my school years, and I had some great teachers here and there. I had a couple that weren't so great, but I think I had some exceptional teachers that inspired me to, to buckle down. I think mom and dad, I had a wonderful, loving environment at home, an encouraging environment. And so, but reading, writing, and arithmetic are kind of the 3 R's, and I'm translated into math, literature, and history, well, science, all those things. But are the children today in Canada, are they getting the kind of education they need to prosper and succeed and compete in the world as it is today? That's I think a big question for people. What are they learning in school? Are they learning enough of the basics to really function at a high level?
Yeah, that's a good point. The going through the system myself, coming from a northern community, I have sort of a bit of a story of how to evaluate it. So I went to school from from kindergarten through to grade 10 in the Hazeltons. And then for grade 11 and 12, I moved to Langley on my own and went to public school for grade 11 and 12. And the education and the quality was the same. So I was a good student in Hazelton, and I fit into being a good student in the school down south. There was the difference was there's just more of us. So the caliber of teaching was equal. There's unique challenges in the north for the demographics that we have in the community, the support at home, like you mentioned, that some kids are very fortunate to have a lot of home support and a lot of involvement in their education from their parents, and some kids aren't as fortunate to have that supportive environment. So that's something that the school systems need to be adaptable to handle. But there is, as a school trustee, there's a few things that we making sure that we approve a balanced budget for the district is number one, and setting the school calendar. Trustees used to have more power. We could actually set tax rates that we had to work with. That's changed over the years. So the government essentially divvies up the budget based on some metrics within the school divisions, and we have to work with what we're given to deliver the programs and education to students. And it's the entire system, right? So you're looking after principals, teachers, custodians, school buses, and everything. But yes, in terms of the core educational values, I mean, that's what the system is there to support and to promote. And there's a lot of tasking and demands that are put on teachers to deliver that. There's parent involvement, there is extracurricular activities. There are a lot of new additions to the curriculum that are challenging to teach and somewhat controversial between parents and teachers alike, and difficult to find consistency on how to teach them or how to deliver them to the classroom. And I think that overall, what I mentioned before about the lack of communication is something that is quite important. It's been reiterated to me through discussions with teachers. System is that they feel like their comments are falling on deaf ears. or they feel like there isn't an avenue to have a conversation or constructive dialogue about different topics that concern them.
Yeah.
There's definitely room for improvement, and there always is, right?
Yeah.
So that's hopefully what we can do going forward.
Wonderful. Well, communication is an essential element. I mean, if people can learn to communicate, then they can function in an environment, a work environment, wherever these young people go after they graduate from high school here in Smithers. Some will go to jobs, careers. Some will be, have a home life, whatever, married and with children. And others will go on to, university and maybe, some kind of technical expertise that they will bring to the world. But they have to be able to read, and they have to be able to communicate effectively. I think the last couple of years with all the mask wearing and social distancing has not helped, especially those in the younger grades who are just learning how to communicate properly, and that's with facial expressions as well as with words. So building a vocabulary. I'm thinking about a couple of quotes I heard recently. One is from G.K. Chesterton, and he said, the time will come when fires will be kindled to prove that 2 + 2 = 4, and swords will be drawn to prove that leaves turn green in the summer. And I guess what he was saying is sometimes the foolishness of sort of fantasies can take over common sense. So people, have to question whether 2 + 2 = 4. Now that seems pretty ridiculous, but we have in our system today, built into our system in British Columbia at least, it as SOGI, SOGI 1, 2, 3, sexual orientation, gender identity. And a few years ago, at the last school board elections, I asked the candidates at that time about SOGI, and it seemed like they really didn't know. I'm not sure if those who have been serving as trustees, if they've come up to speed on that curriculum, but it's one that sort of with or without, well, usually without the parental consent, and maybe even against the wishes of some of the children, students, that it imposes a particular worldview in terms of, sexual identity and that type of thing. So there's a lot of concern about that. And I think in the last year, at least, those concerns have become more public knowledge. I think it was almost a hidden element when the BC government, sort of began pushing this on the school systems. But it is much more, people are much more aware of it today. So can you give us your thoughts about SOGI, about the program and the implementation, and how, we can sort of turn our attention to doing the things that are going to help children grow up and use their talents rather than get confused about their identity?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a topic that is brought up quite a bit in these types of discussions, especially in elections. It was a conversation, like you mentioned, at the last forum, and questions were asked and responses were given. And I think that your assessment is accurate. There is I think a lack of awareness is one. So I've spoken to parents who aren't aware at all of the SOGI program, SOGI 1 to 3 program. I've spoken to a few teachers who have given me sort of slightly different definitions or expectations, methods of instruction, and deliverables in the classroom regarding the program. And I think that there's a few aspects that are are positive in terms of schools should be a safe environment where, if I have a son that likes to dress in eccentric clothing and express himself, he should feel safe. And so should any other child that goes to school. They shouldn't be bullied. They shouldn't be ridiculed or judged for who they are as children. Children are precious to society. They are unique. They're wonderful and have so much creativity that needs to come out. And but there's also a concern amongst parents that the program is touching on topics that either are not or that are not age appropriate, and that some of the materials within the program are explicit and should not be in the realm of a school library, especially elementary school and young children. And I think that part of the issue with that, and I agree with that aspect of it. I don't think there should be sexually explicit materials in school libraries and in elementary school libraries. But you're right in that there isn't a lot of communication on the subject material of SOGI 123 to parents, how it's delivered in the classroom, what the motives or the reasoning for the program is. That I think that a lot of the controversy could be cleared up through better communication, but also when we implement something into a school system, there should also be an evaluation, and that evaluation should take into account comments from parents, from the parent advisory committees, comments from administrators and teachers who are delivering the program. And there should be some sort of way to measure either the effectiveness, the benefit, the harm. How do we evaluate a program like that to say this is good for the schools, this is not good for the schools, and are there changes that need to be made? And parents' concerns should be taken valid as input in that process. There's lots of topics that are taught in the schools in that some parents disagree with, and schools should be able to be flexible to meet those needs. Parents shouldn't have to feel that they need to pull their kids out of a class because certain things are being discussed one week or another, or that the school is trying to hide that from them. I know from personal experience that a lot of the Pride events were not on the school calendars that came home in our kids' agendas, and that what is the reason for that? Some parents would like to know when Pride events are so that they can attend. Some parents would like to know when Pride events are so that they can teach their children, an alternative lesson that day, maybe at home or do something differently. So,
well, yeah, so it's a worldview clash, definitely. And the changes since you were in school or since I was in school have been pretty dramatic. I think this clash between the state and the family is a real critical one, because some people in government and in the school system believe that they've used the term co-parents. In other words, they're on an equal footing with the parents in terms of the life and trajectory of these children, like their worldview, what they understand about the world. And it really becomes a religious thing that, because what you believe about the world, you may not call it religious, but it is a philosophical understanding that does affect how you plan your life, how you manage your life, whether it comes to marriage and all those various important aspects of life. But a lot of parents are speaking up now, not only here but across the country, and in the United States as well, saying, no, we are not co-parents with the state. We are the parents of these children, and it is both our duty, our responsibility, and our right to be fully informed what's going on in the classroom. We are the ones that want to direct the moral and intellectual bent of our children, the help them understand the world they're growing up in. The school is we as parents entrust children to the school system to learn the basics: reading, writing, arithmetic, literature, history, and science, so that they are prepared to face the world. And we do not appreciate the state through the school system imposing a worldview on our children that is not what we teach in our homes. So it's a pretty big deal, and I know it's a difficult one to talk about without being branded as some kind of narrow personality, right? But it is the expression of fathers and mothers across this country that they want to be the ones responsible for the moral upbringing of their children, and they would resist the imposition of other ideas from ideologues within the school system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a challenging environment, right? When you're weighing, you're trusting the school system to deliver education to your children, but then you have issues with some of the externals beyond the core education, and kids do get a benefit out of being with others in the school system. That's not to say that there aren't some fantastic homeschool environments as well, where there's a lot of success. But we don't teach religion in schools anymore. However, there's a huge diversity in religious beliefs in the children that attend schools. Yet there's also a diversity in different genders and different sexualities and different identities of children that attend schools. Does that mean that we need to teach that? I think that we need to focus on being compassionate, respectful, and providing an environment where every child, no matter what their religious background is or what their identity is, feels comfortable at school and has an effective environment to learn in, and is free from the fear of being bullied or teased for who they are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to introduce our kids to all of the different options that they have. And I agree. There's things that can be taught at home, and there's things that can be taught at school. Now, on the other hand, a lot of times schools do play a role in supporting people who have a struggling home life, who might not have that support to be there for them. Some kids, school is a safe place for them, and home is not, right? So there needs to be some understanding of that as well. But yes, I'm there's more and more and more poured on teachers as well that I think is outside of the realm of their their duties and expertise. I mean, we're expecting teachers to be counselors and psychiatrists or psychologists to evaluate children's mental health, and I think that that's a lot of demand, and teachers should be valued in the community and appreciated for what they do, and support and encouraged for delivering education to our kids.
Yeah, the teaching of history, I just jumped to that for a minute. I know you've got another call coming in soon. You are in a race for this position as school trustee, and you have a lot of commitment. So I appreciate you taking the time with us today. History, there's that saying that those who don't understand our history are doomed to repeat it. And so we have seen nations crumble before, societies collapse, And today it seems like, the school systems have dropped a lot of the requirements to track and remember, dates and times and names that have been prominent in history. And of course, some of people who have been prominent in Canadian history have now become vilified. And their names, there's an effort, I'm not saying this is the school system, but it's kind of a societal effort to obliterate those names from history as if you can make them unhappen. So I'm really troubled by this, because I think that young people need to know the history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then they need to say, well, as far as the bad and the ugly, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And as I say always about the Holocaust, that, we have to make sure never again. And yet, if we allow our education system to pick and choose, what historical facts are important, and the bent on it, or the angle from which it is taught, that we can be raising a generation that does not understand the past and may stumble into some of the same problems in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, history does tend to repeat itself, and I'm not a history major, but I do agree that there's a lot of opportunity now for students to see multiple sides of different events that have happened in the past. And the internet's provided a fantastic ability to research and really pour into things that perspectives of history, like history is taught from a perspective of who's teaching it, and the culture or the hemisphere that history is taught from. And the story might be different from the other side of the war or the battle that was being taught. So I think it's important for us to remain objective, and for us to critically evaluate what's being taught in our schools as parents, to question and to ask good questions, and to consider the other side. That the stories might be a bit deeper than what's portrayed. So,
Exactly.
and that's a really important lesson for kids to learn. But I think that you can't really believe everything that you see on TV or on the internet, or sometimes in the textbooks. There's more to the story.
Well, it's happening right now around us. Media is carrying a lot of information or misinformation, we believe, about various topics, and it's amazing how they can obliterate history and create a new history, just like it says in 1984. Anyway, Michael, I know you have to run, so before you do, Michaelggburns, candidate for school trustee in School District 54, living in Smithers. Can you tell us how people can get a hold of you, how they can help if they want to help in your campaign, or where they can find out what you think about various topics, ask you questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So my email is a good one. You can write me, and I'll reach out for a time to get in touch. And I really appreciate hearing from parents that have kids in the school system about different topics that are relevant. So my email is Michael, Michaelggburns@gmail.com. And I think Rod can probably provide that as well.
Yeah, we'll put it in the footnotes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm happy to hear from parents. I'm happy to hear from teachers and those who are part of the education system that have comments or concerns or support or otherwise. So all of the better, more informed I am, then the more effective I'll be.
Michael, thank you for stepping forward to serve in this important role. I know there are 4 of you running for 3 positions, so we'll see what happens. It's October 15th, correct? Voting day?
That's a voting day, yes, but there are opportunities to vote in advance, and you can find all that information online through the Town of Smithers or the BC Elections website on how to have your advance voting if you can't make it on the 15th.
Excellent. And across the country, there are men and women running for school trustees, for town councilors, for mayors, and we hope and pray that many good people who want the best for our children and for this country will be elected into office. So again, thank you for joining us today, and wish you to enjoy the rest of this campaign, and we'll look forward to seeing who serves in the as trustees in the School District 54 after October 15th. So thank you very much, Michael. God bless you.
Thanks, Rod. God bless.